Today we're doing a very early tier list for the NAIC format, which will be Paldea Evolved format. I'm using this tier list that Zapdos TCG made. Now, I have been testing a fair bit for NAIC. I'm taking NAIC pretty seriously for myself. Um, and so these are going to be my honest thoughts on all of the decks right now. And please remember the tier names on the side, I went with letters because I felt like those are the ones that people will feel the least strongly about. Really, it does not matter what the name of the tier is over here on the left. All that matters is the ordering of the tiers. So I think this tier is better than this one, something's got to be an F tier. So we're talking about all of these decks in relation to just this group of decks. Obviously, if we included starter decks, unfunctioning decks, then those would be in the F tier and everything would change a little bit. So I'm going to rank them how I honestly perceive them, and yeah, and you can discuss in the comments below. So right now, according to my testing, I have three decks kind of tied for being the best deck. And that's going to be straight Gardevoir, that's going to be single strike Lugia, and that is going to be Lost Zone box. I guess Turbo Lost Zone box. And the caveat here is I have not decided if I think Kyogre is worth it or not in this upcoming format because on one hand, I don't feel like Kyogre helps against Gardevoir EX, and potentially Drapion V could help more there. And obviously some other cards as well, like Hawlucha for the Hawlucha plus Sableye turn, make it easier to knock things out. Boss's Orders, even like Penny. I'm not sure about Kyogre yet. That's like one of the main things I'm trying to form a more concrete opinion on right now in my own testing. But yeah, Lost Zone box with Greninja, the Turbo package, Forest Seal Stone, either one Forest, one Sky, or two Forest, that kind of build. So I think these three decks are all at the top right now. Like these are the three that any deck that's not these three, I need to get through these three with the deck if I want to consider it. Because not only are these three all good, they're also all going to be popular. I would be surprised if any of these three decks were less than 10% of the NAIC metagame for the Masters division. Right now, I'm expecting Straight Guardy, Lost Zone Box Greninja, and Single Strike Lugia each to be 10% or more of the day one meta. And I think they are all very good. Like, if Lugia is like frustratingly good because it still just does the same thing, V-Guard energy on a Tyranitar is very frustrating for Lost Zone to deal with because Dragonite is like the nuke that can take out Tyranitar, but it can't do that when it has the V-Guard energy. And then Lugia also just has good type coverage because of the single strike package. So like against Arceus, it has Stonejourner or the Urshifu. Against Gudra, it has Urshifu. Against Duraludon, it has the Urshifu. So it's not like a foolproof deck by any means, but it has enough options, and if it gets those double Archeops on turn two, you know that that game is going to be a grind, and you're already in the losing seat just because they have the double Archeops. So yeah, Lugia is like frustratingly good still. And these are the three that I would have to decide between if I was to crown one of the decks the best deck in the format. I'd probably be going with Gardevoir right now, but they're all pretty close. Okay, so in the next tier down, like what is almost as good as these decks? There's a lot of decks in this next tier, and I feel like it's gonna frustrate people that I'm gonna put so many decks in this next tier, but um let's just get on with it. So Arceus Giratina is just so solid and consistent. There are games where it's too linear and you won't be able to outplay your opponent, but there's also plenty of games where it's consistency and it's average rate of being above average just gets you there. It's a really really solid deck. Arceus Duraludon, most likely with Umbreon VMAX, but I guess you could also consider Flying Pikachu or Alolan Vulpix V Star. This deck is also very very good. And then we have Gardevoir Mewtwo V Union, which I'm going to consider this to most likely represent the reversal Guardy variant, which has more options than straight Guardy. In a perfect world, it would probably be better, but I think its consistency keeps it down just a bit, and it's surely going to be less popular than straight Guardy. We're gonna put Fusion Strike Mew here as well. It's you can't forget about Fusion Strike Mew. It's fast, it hits hard, it's consistent. And I think Double Turbo Mew also deserves this spot. It's just as good as these decks. It just depends how much Mew hate is around. I think Fusion Strike Mew will deal with the Mew hate a little better. But we'll have to see. I think both are obviously very, very strong decks, and if people respect them, they get a little weaker, but I think Fusion Strike Mew, even if people are out here with the Spirit Tomb and the Drapion and stuff, it's still going to do well. Okay, and then next tier down from there, Chien Pal Baxcalibur seems pretty good in testing so far, but it also can feel a little messy. You got a 202 or 302, 303, whatever kind of Baxcalibur line you're playing with rare candies. Sometimes it almost feels like I want to go second with the deck so I can play Irida for Battle Pass plus another water Pokemon. You don't want to choose second because you also want to evolve as fast as possible. The deck feels a little weird in that regards, but I like the options it has, especially with the cross switchers and Lost City version. Lost Zone Giratina gets a big boost this set. Jet Energy, Super Rod, Iono. We'll have to see if it can be as good as it seems like it is in the Asian events, because it's been like one of the most popular decks for them for a long time now, and also succeeding, but it hasn't seen that in the West, but we didn't have Jet Energy. So I think Jet Energy and Super Rod and Iono might help this deck out. And also potentially the Spirit Tomb for the Mew matchup. So I could see this moving up to the next tier, but I'm going to taper my expectations on it. Colorless Lugia is pretty good, but I don't think it's as good as Single Strike Lugia, to be honest. Yeah, Colorless Lugia is good. It feels more consistent. I think it feels like pretty smooth actually, because you're trying to chain the same attackers. You also have Jet Energy to help with your retreating and moving Pokemon around, but it doesn't have a way to get through Duraludon. It doesn't have type coverage like Single Strike Lugia has. We're probably going to end up adding some tiers here if we're going to put all these decks on. Let's see. I think Lost Zone Gudra is being underrated right now. I'm going to put that here. Arceus Pika is honestly pretty good. It's just there's two better Arceus decks. Um, so yeah, it kind of depends on the metagame too, because Arceus Pika could be good into Lugia, into Sableye, into Lost Zone. It can be good because you like focus more on your Arceuses and Charaning, and then it could also be good against Gardevoir because they primarily basic Pokemon, but they are using the Shining Arcana Gardevoir more now than ever because of Temple of Sinnoh. I'm not sorry, Temple of Sinnoh, because of Reversal Energy. I was in my head, that's a little Freudian slip, because in my head, the next thing I wanted to talk about was, can you just like actually include Temple of Sinnoh in your Arceus Pika deck to like counter the reversal energies and then only attach basic energies to Flying Pika? So I was kind of thinking about that next. But yeah, I think Arceus Pika is fine. It's just not as impressive as the other Arceus variants. Okay, then D tier, I guess. We have Inteleon Urshifu, we have Miraidon. We're gonna have a lot of the new decks that haven't proved themselves yet. So Meowscarada, Forretress EX, Tinglu. I don't know why Palkia is here without Chi and Pal. I don't think anybody's gonna play Palkia without Chi and Pal. We'll put Sablezard. Yeah, we'll put Sablezard at the top of this tier. I mean, maybe Sablezard can even just get its own tier. I think it's better than these decks. Let's add another tier. Add a row below. And then we'll change that color. I'm pretty much looking at decks in the context of how do they fare against the top two tiers I have here, because not only are these the good decks, they're also the popular decks except for this. Except for this Guardy deck. So maybe we move this Guardy deck down to here. I do think these will be the 7 most popular decks. Chi and Pal will fight to get into there to be popular, but I'm not sure how much we'll pick it up by the time for NAIC as like the whole Western community, because most obviously people are going to travel from other places to come to NAIC, but like the majority of the competitors at NAIC will be people from North America, and I'm not sure how quickly people are going to jump on Chi and Pal. So yeah, we're looking at decks in the context of how do they fare against these 7 decks pretty much. And yeah, I don't really want to play Sablezard into any of them, so I guess Sablezard is just going to be... Okay, what are the decks I'm, like, not even consider? Block Snorlax, I mean, Control's not even going to get put on the tier list because it really just depends what combinations you can come up with. Like, anybody who tries to accurately put Control on a tier list at the beginning of a new set list is out of their mind. Either they're Sander and they know how good Control actually is because or they're just throwing darts in the dark. And I'm just gonna leave Control out of the tier list. And I guess this next one's gonna be things that I think have potential but probably not. So I'll put Arceus Goodra there. I'll put Shadow Rider there. I'll put Skeledirge there. Um, and then a whole lot of things will go into the F tier, and Control stays out of the thing. So there's my tier list so far. These are the best. These are competing for best deck. These are all almost as good as the best decks, but just lack a little bit of, probably all lacking versatility, I'd say, because these top 3 decks are all very adaptable in their game plans and have multiple different attackers and a lot of options throughout the games. But also, there's like so many ways you could build Lost Zone Box. So this is an archetype, but it's really like 5 different decks in there. I think Single Strike Lugia will stay better than Colorless Lugia. Although I do think Colorless Lugia is interesting, I don't think it's better than Single Strike. Chi and Pal's good, but we'll have to see if it matters because these decks are decks that people already like, and I think they're going to stay in the metagame. This Gardevoir deck is good. It could be up here. I think this separates the decks based on how good I think they are in the most accurate fashion without just putting everything in their own tier and having 20 different tiers. Leave it in the comments down below how bad my tier list is. Thank you for watching.